so today we're going to talk about sustainability and beauty and how to tackle it, because as you all know probably, sustainability is a very difficult issue. We think that it's black or white, it's an easy answer, but it's actually far from it. And so we wanted to discuss with Richard today about his side, which is more about ingredient and development of a technology regarding ingredients, and with Joe talking about more the packaging side that they've developed. So can you tell me a little bit about you, Richard?
Yeah, so I'm Richard Blackburn. I am Professor of Sustainable Materials at the University of Leeds, where I've been for 20 years. And I've got a university spin-out company called Keracol, which I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail. And Keracol is part of we have our own cosmetics brand called Dr. Craft, which again we'll talk lots about as well.
I see. Thank you very much. It's good to have you and to have the university and the research side as well, because we as professionals, we only are in the beauty industry and in the industry, so we're disconnected from the uni work. So it's good to have you on board with us today. And I guess for you, it's good to be connected with professionals as well. Because
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So Joe, can you tell us quickly about when you started Beauty Kitchen?
Hi everyone, and thanks for having me here today, Eva. It's sustainability I love to talk about. So my name is Joe Chidley. I'm the co-founder of Beauty Kitchen, but also Return, Refill, Repeat, which is a reusable, refillable packaging option that is available to the personal care industry. We started out in 2014 trading our indie brand Beauty Kitchen, ultimately to disrupt in a collaborative format the rest of the beauty industry. So I am a chemist, but I am proud to be a field chemist. And what happens with that is you then ask questions because you don't really know the answer, and you need to pull in other people and experts to help you on your journey. So that's why I'm really excited by today.
Very good, so welcome. And I'm going to introduce myself because not everybody knows me, I guess, as well. So my name is Eva Lagarde, and I've always worked in the beauty side, on the media or the event side, and I was always connecting the suppliers of beauty solutions with beauty brands. And now I'm launching a platform called Resources, and it's to help marketing directors understand sustainability, because they are the main decision makers and then the finished decision maker when it comes to product and to final decision about whether to switch from one material to another, or about marketing claim as well. And I want to train them because everybody go on and on about the fact that they do bad marketing, and so I think it's time to educate them and to give them the information that they need. So I contact a lot of experts that I know from my background in either glass manufacturing, packaging manufacturing, or ingredient suppliers, for instance. And I go through a very specific topics with them, in-depth topic, to talk about why something is sustainable and how something can be more sustainable in the future, and what suppliers are working on that. So that's why I wanted to talk about sustainability and strategy, because it's very, very complicated. So just to give you a brief overview, I wanted to give you maybe a definition of sustainability. So this is mine. So happy to discuss that if you don't agree with this. Happy to discuss this at the end. So to me, sustainability, it's about circularity. So you have to think about sustainable beauty considers the design of any item with its impact on humans, workers, customers, suppliers, communities, on the planet, the fauna and the flora, obviously, and on the profit taken or generated. Because when you take something, you take a profit away from someone else as well. So what are you bringing back, when you take something? And so the impact to me must be measured also in 360 view circularity approach, from the extraction, the manufacturing, the usage to the destruction or the restoration of the product. And this is where with the beauty industry until now, we were not really thinking about the restoration. It was more about manufacturing and then wasting and then ditching things. And now it's really important to be thinking about restoration and having a circular beauty. What do we do with the product once we use them? And so to go a bit further, sorry, I'm just gonna go to the other slide, So to me, there are three aspects that we need to take into consideration when we think about sustainability. We need to think about the people, the planet, and the prosperity. It goes back to this full circle. With the people, it means like deep down the line at the sourcing, plant or the soil, where you source the aluminium or something like this, how people are treated. Who are the workers? Are they getting a fair wage? Do you give them skills? Do you help them to grow their skills or to grow in learning? So do you create prosperity for them as well? So like, are you only taking or are you bringing something to them? Something like that. The people as well can be your employees or your co-workers. How is the staff working in your company? How are people treated? And something like that. And also it goes up to consumers and to government and to communities around you. How do you treat your consumers? Are you fair? Are you clear with your consumers, or are you dragging them with fake information or greenwashing? How you treated people in overall? It's not just on the marketing, on the facing side. So that's something you need to bear in mind when you think about beauty and sustainability. The planet is the sourcing again, is also the manufacturing processes, and what is your carbon impact? What is your impact on the soil? What is your impact on the restoration as well? Think about everything, 360 view of your impact on the planet. And prosperity equals the same. And this prosperity impacts as well people and planet. And we could use the word profit here, because this is what companies use. They use the word profit because they only measure whether a company is profitable. But we know that with the B Corp, and Joe can tell me more maybe about that, the B Corp and other certification, it's not just about profit nowadays, but it's about prosperity. And to me, prosperity is about the innovation. Are you having an innovation mindset? Do you help people gain skills? Do you bring to the planet something that will grow, help to grow onto compost or something like that, that the planet will restore? To give you an example, for instance, with cardboard, when you have a cardboard that is SFC or PEFC certified, it means that the forests are sustainably managed. And for instance, to give you an example, since the 90s, in Europe, there's been a lot of certification, and the European forest has grown by 10% in 30 years, thanks to that. So we can see that here for the planet, we have created prosperity because we have implemented certification that allow the planet to grow again. And then we need to think about, again, creation, use, waste, and regeneration, full circle. What are you creating? What is the use? What is the waste you're creating? And it goes the same with people, planet, and prosperity. This is something you need to take into consideration when you think about sustainability. I do understand that this is a very philosophical concept maybe, and very out there. But that's something you need to have in mind whenever you do something now, because until now we were just creating and wasting. But what about regeneration? What about the next generation? What about the legacy that we're creating? Are we leaving something on the planet that people can benefit from? Or are we just leaving crap? And so there are good examples already in the beauty industry. And Richard is going to talk more about that. But we can already upcycle ingredients from beetroot, from leftovers from the food industry, when they create juice or when they do coffee, instead of disregarding, the peels from the fruits or the coffee grain, then we can use it into the brands. And we know that Upcircle in the UK does that, and with Dr. Kraft you do this as well, Richard. And I'm sure that Joe, you are, in your ingredients, you could probably tell more, but maybe there's something you are working on as well. And it goes the same for packaging now. I don't know if you heard about it, Sulapack, but in the beauty industry, we're working on a full circle compostable packaging. This one, within 12 weeks, degrade down to nothing, and there's no microplastic, there's nothing left on the planet. The only thing with that one is it needs to be industrially composted, but still, it's a good solution. And so anyway, so that's why I created Resource, to give you information about that and to help you understand all of this in details. But I will go into details a bit later. Now I'm gonna open the discussion because I think it's good to start talking together. And so yes, so first, do you have any comments about what I just said?
Well, I agree. And why wouldn't I? The big thing for me is, if you start a business, it doesn't matter what business you start, yes? If you are making a product that you sell for £10 and £2.50 of that is a piece of packaging, and that packaging then goes in the bin. Why would you want to waste that money as part of your business model? For me, it just doesn't make good business sense to have things that end up either in landfill, and I'm just talking from the commercials. We'll get into the environmental and all of that good stuff, but even just from a commercial point of view, why would you want to do that? And that's what's really interesting about our industry, is we respond really well to trends and things that are happening out there. And sustainability, although it's not a trend, it is here to stay. What we have as an industry is the opportunity to innovate and drive how consumers consume, but also other FMCG industries that can learn from us, and we can be at the forefront of that.
Yeah, but then to talk about that, to go on about this, do you think that we can influence the consumers, and how can we influence them? Because just a quick question, a consumer, how much time do they have to make a decision about buying a new product? This is the tricky part, because we want to be clear and explain and educate them, but how much time do we have? This is limited. And how much time do they want to consider about sustainability? So I'm thinking, what is the power do you have as a brand? Because what I see is, like, for instance, brand goes to the using recycled cardboard, because in the mind of consumer it's easy, it's recycled, but actually it's not better in terms of CO2 emission compared to virgin cardboard. So as a brand, what is your mission and what time do you have?
Yeah, and this is where the detail comes in. So we've immersed ourselves in sustainability from the beginning, and we don't have everything right. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get away from the monoculture of beauty and trying to give biodiversity. Even if that's the technical cycle in terms of man-made packaging through to the natural cycle in terms of ingredients. And I think it's about access. So if you think of any beauty store, whether that's online or bricks and mortar, or whether it's a supermarket online or bricks and mortar, you go down the personal care aisle, you will struggle to find a piece of packaging that can be reused. Yeah, and we already know that recycling doesn't work. Now, it's not that the utopian dream with recycling, eventually we can get there, but at the moment we need options. And I think as consumers, you do go into autopilot and you buy what's in front of you unless there's a specific thing you're looking for. So unless we as an industry give them more variety in terms of reuse, then nothing's going to change.
Yes, I agree. And so what is your, Richard, to go to you, what is your key, interest, or what is your priority for you when it comes to sustainability? What do you think you should prioritize in the beauty industry?
The reason we got into the cosmetics industry is because we saw how unsustainable the cosmetics industry was. And that also incorporates safety as well. I think it's a big aspect of beauty which is often overlooked is the safety aspect, and that's really where we came at it. And I think that one of the concerning things that I have is the increasing use of naturals and the assumption that natural equals safe, natural equals sustainable, and it doesn't necessarily. And it's about life cycles, as you said in your presentation. You have to look at the life cycle of your whole product. And one of the other things that's really important to us is that it's not just about hero actives. If you think about a cosmetic product, your active ingredient is maybe 1% of the formulation, and people make such a big song and dance about their active ingredient as being really sustainable. Then you look at the rest of the formulation, it's just the same old stuff that people have been using for decades.
Yeah.
So when we built Dr. Craft, we were really, really determined that the whole formulation was going to be as sustainable as possible, because cosmetics end up in the drain, either immediately after you've used them, if it's personal care products, or eventually after you wash them off your skin with some other personal care products. So they're all going into the drain. There's no end of pipe treatment. These things are going into the environment all the time. So we need to think about that circular life cycle of those products and what's happened, how we produce them.
Okay, can you tell us more about your technology then? Because you've developed a specific technology while you were researching, and then this is took you to start your own brand, actually.
Yeah, so when we were looking at resources in terms of where we make our actives, I think we saw that there was a real opportunity in terms of food byproducts. I think that I have big problems with dedicating land to growing cosmetics because we have barely enough land to feed the global population. So should we really be dedicating additional land to growing cosmetics and other chemicals? However, we have an amazing opportunity through byproducts of the things that we are already growing through the food industry and other industries to look at opportunities. So we looked into food waste. So as you said, fruit skins, vegetable peelings, other byproducts, where there are huge volumes of these materials that are available every year. We've got a product coming out later this year based on mandarin peels. You may think, mandarins, how much of that can be? There's 10 million tons a year of mandarin peel produced in China alone, which they can't do anything with. It's too acidic to compost it, so they burn it. So they burn a raw material, which is essentially an agricultural material. So we're taking that material, developing clever extraction processes to take out interesting actives that are clean. And then the other really interesting thing is that once it's been through our process to take out the key actives that we want, what's then kind of left at the end of our pipe is biodegradable and is compostable. So not only have we got value from it, but we've actually managed a waste and converted it into something that can then biodegrade. One example, we do pigments from blackcurrants and anti-aging products from grape waste from the wine industry. So, and there are lots of examples of where there are opportunities, and doing all of that as cleanly as possible, because of course you don't want the extraction process to use harmful solvents or be polluting. So trying to embrace all of those principles of green chemistry in those extraction processes too.
And why did you start your own brand? Because you could have just developed the technology and supplied the ingredient to other brands.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I think that our experience, we've been Keracol, we've been going 10 years now, and our experience with it really was that let's call them the big brands, who all came to talk to us at some point, weren't really prepared to engage in the technology and the R&D. They just wanted to come and buy a raw material. And that's not our business model. We're scientists. We're developing technologies, not just the ingredients, but also the methods of application, developing IP. And it was really a question that the big brands weren't prepared to pay for it, what we valued it at. So against everybody else advising us against it, we said we're going to do it ourselves. So that's essentially what we did in developing Dr. Kraft, so that we could exploit our own technology. And obviously we're very small, we're growing, but we thought that was the best way to do it, because we could stick to our own principles and we could be the people defining what constitutes sustainable. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of brands out there that claim sustainability, and it's absolutely not sustainable at all. And use terminologies like natural and organic and vegan, and really don't embrace those principles correctly. They use them as greenwashing. And it comes back to what you said before. How on earth does the consumer make that decision in that split second where they're looking at a product? How do they interpret that? And that really bothers me. But unfortunately, we've no kind of regulations or legislation defining what natural, organic, vegan even means.
So you would mean that like a brand would just get your technology or your raw materials and then only use 1% of that in their formula, and the rest would be
well, you see it all
less natural or less, kind of.
You see it very, very often. That you see products where, for example, I don't really want to get into vegan too much because I know we're not really talking about vegan, but vegan starts to be used interchangeably with sustainable and natural. And I absolutely object to that, because I can show you loads of examples of products that are labeled vegan and all of the formulation pretty much is petrochemical derived. And they're not lying, because of course they're not animal derived. But I think that there's a very, very different thing that to grasp with there when people are using a label.
Yeah.
And the consumer doesn't realize.
I agree. The other day I was in a shoe shop and they are like vegan boots and there's like a brand called Vegan and they were like, but what is it made of then? And I checked on the website. I did contact the customer service. No one will get back to me. Of course, if it's vegan, if it's not leather, then chances are it's plastic somehow.
Yeah, most well, my other area of research is textile, and I can tell you that most vegan leather is polyurethane.
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna stick in your shoes and you're gonna destroy the planet as well. So. You may as well not do that anyway. So just to move on to, Joe, come on.
Sorry. So I get that. And you know what? I agree with everything that we're saying here. But what we need to be mindful of is that we are ahead of the curve, and people that are vegan as well are ahead of the curve. And the way that I try to come to terms with it is that at least we're nudging the dial. Because as soon as you start to get into smaller and smaller categories, so the food industry, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or whatever, you then fall into people being more educated. Whether they are more educated is for another debate, but what it does is it then increases that awareness of what's going on around people's buying decisions. With regards to greenwashing, unfortunately, as an industry, not just our industry, but any industry, we're always going to have to deal with that. So I think we need to, we need to put it aside and try and focus on the great things that we are all doing. And, when it comes to the big companies, Richard, I'm so with you in terms of how to get them to change. However, those big businesses are all made of human beings, and sometimes it is a timing piece, and we as indie brands need to keep on at that. We need to keep trying to assimilate them from within and almost never give up.
I agree. We are responsible for educating the big brands on how to do it properly.
And I think it will take time to educate. There is some question. Actually, I want to go into them because there's no need to wait until the end. So we keep the interaction, the discussion interactive. So there's someone talking about the byproduct of marine ingredients. Do you know about that a bit, Richard, or not really?
Talking about what? Sorry.
Byproduct of marine, either algae or even.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. We work with seaweed. We've developed a hairstyling product from seaweed. So the styling polymer is seaweed derived. And that's another really good example of resource management, because macroalgae, seaweed, are really, really amazing opportunities for getting ingredients, because they grow so abundantly. And you can really manage the growth of them. We worked with growers up in the Shetland Islands. It's a very, very bit that's often in a box on the top of the map of the UK. It's not closer to Norway than it is Scotland. And we worked with them because the sea up there is so clean, and they've got so much coastline because the actual circumference of the Shetland Islands. These tiny little inlets to grow seaweed. And if you do it responsibly, it actually grows quicker if you farm it than if you just leave it. So you're then thinking about potentially, carbon sinks in terms of, using these resources. And again, of course, it's not competing with land for food. And often farming seaweed can benefit other fisheries and things like that as well. So, choosing your ingredients and how it's managed, how it's farmed, and working with the farmers, the producers as well, is really important. When we get our waste grey, we work with a winery in the south of England at their harvest time to get that raw material. So it's very much helping them as well to get a greater value for their raw material.
Very interesting. So I just want to switch to packaging a bit now. Joe, what is it? I know you developed a specific model about refillable, etc. But how did you start about packaging, and what were the difficulties, the obstacles you had when you started your brand, and how did you overcome them, I guess?
Yeah, so when we started out, we are still self-funded, so we're still a bootstrap business. And what comes with that is that you need to get creative about how you launch your products. And when we started out in 2014, not all of our products, but some of our products were in PCR, yes, and the other format that we used was glass. But ultimately, it comes back to some of the questions that you'd put on with regards to this webinar. It's about, have you developed your strategy, and what is that strategy to begin with? And very, very few businesses realise their strategy from the day off. There's building blocks that need to be put in place, because the strategy is generally a long-term vision of where you want to get to. But it means that you don't lose sight while you're compromising, which for us it was compromising in the early stages. But the early stages are so key for an indie beauty brand, because what you want to do is get your product to market, yes, and then find out, get the feedback loop going, fail fast, fail cheap. And once that happens, you can then start to put more of the longer term vision in place. We always wanted to have, so in Scotland, we have one of the oldest bottle deposit schemes for a soft drinks company, which is 104 years old. And I'm fortunate that our business has been allowed to spend time with Iron Brew, as it's called, which some people may or may not know. And, you know, they went into the technicalities of reuse, a reuse model for soft drinks. And we just knew that that's what we wanted to do, but we wanted to do it for beauty. The difference with soft drinks is you have one bottle format. So it's within the realms of packaging, it's relatively straightforward. When you come to beauty, you know, with marketing, you have so many different formats, you know, it does get quite complicated. But what we thought is, we're going to take it in chunks and do it a bit at a time. The other thing that we had is we had the support of the retailer that we had launched with. Again, we chose a different route to market. Although we had our e-commerce site, we were exclusive with Holland & Barrett, a retailer based here in the UK. But what that did is that gave us volume as a small indie brand, but it also gave us a consumer base that are naturally already involved in sustainability. So it was a great place for us to start. And what they have done is they've actually grown with the reuse packaging model and the refill in store model as we've grown with that and brought out new formats. So that's been a great it's no longer a pilot, but that was a great pilot for us. But it's to give other businesses the confidence that when you're a smaller business, just because you're small doesn't mean to say that you can't have a big impact. And ultimately, our strategy was to get the beauty industry to change how they viewed packaging. And it's this idea that packaging is product as a service. So the reason why you buy a shampoo is for the shampoo in the bottle, not for the bottle, you know, but trying to undo the mindset that's been given over the past 30 years is quite a hard thing to do. So once we've done it with Beauty Kitchen, we then went out to see if anyone else in the beauty industry would be interested. And that's where Unilever came in as our sort of second. So Beauty Kitchen's the first customer, Unilever was the second customer. Now, a lot of people might think, well, Unilever, why would you work with Unilever? You know, are they not competitors? But in sustainability, that's just not the way you need to see things. You have to be open to collaboration. Is that easy? No. Is it hard? Yes. Is it the right thing to do? Definitely.
Yeah, and then talking about Unilever, you actually refused to go on exclusivity with them.
Yes, yeah, so they did ask for exclusivity, and why wouldn't they? And we just played it back to them in terms of their sustainability mission, you know, the stuff that they've put out in the media, and we wanted to play that back to them. And really it was both a meetings of minds to say it really isn't the right thing to be exclusive here.
Yeah. So interesting. So you talk about the fact that you started as a brand and you were a startup brand. So, but I guess it's different if you are an existing and legacy brand, for instance, and you have to switch your entire model. So what would you recommend to a brand that has to switch your entire portfolio instead of creating it? Because I found that with sustainability, when you create it, then your cost of goods is integrated in that. But if you have to switch, it's a different deal. So what would you recommend to a brand when they have to switch to sustainable solutions?
And that was the research piece that we were doing. So through Beauty Kitchen and engaging with the industry, we wanted to find out what would stop you from using reusable packaging. And the main thing was cost, time. I've already got my products in a format that I love and my customers love. You know, so there was a raft of different things. And what we've done over time is we've debunked and almost broken down those barriers to entry. What we want to do is support any brands that are looking to move to reusable packaging or a refill model. And the way that we've done that is to all of those things: cost, time, how would you do it? And that's where, if we take Unilever as an example, they have a plethora of different brands across the globe. What we've started with is we've started with the UK and Ireland, and we've started with 8 products, 8 personal care products and 1 laundry product. And those 8 products are from a variety of their different brands, from Alberto Balsam through to Radox, as an example. And what we've done is taken that down in a chunky so that they are offering that as an option, but we're trying to be very complementary to the rest of what their brand is. Yeah, because you can't, if you have so many SKUs, it would be impossible, and it probably would be commercial suicide to do everything all at once. But if you do it, the other great thing about doing it in chunks is that you can then take your customer, whether that's a retailer or whether that's a consumer, on the journey with you. Because let's face it, we're all on the sustainability journey. Even sustainability nerds that are mostly on this call today, we're still on that journey because we're evolving it and making it happen.
Interesting. And so talking about creating a brand, Richard, because you went on starting your brand because you couldn't, you were not happy with the brand we're doing with your product. So what is the thing you learned though? Because it's not that easy. And if you want your texture to be pleasurable and your product to be efficient, then, you have to make compromises, I guess, for the formula. So what did you learn, and what trade-off did you have to make when creating your brand?
I actually don't think we did. We didn't have to make compromises. I think that it's a big myth. I think that people often think that, if you want to switch to more sustainable ingredients, that it's difficult and you're going to have to make compromises. And as green chemists, people who work with natural products at a kind of molecular level, it's kind of understanding what amazing chemistry there is in nature. And so our principle was to really go back to a blank piece of paper and say, what does this formulation need to look like to deliver that activity? And I think that really advantaged us because we didn't have all of those set preconceptions of, we have to use this base formulation and then we'll add your ingredient into it. It's like, no, we just start and build it up. And that's been really amazing for us because it's allowed us to invent new types of formulations that people are not really using, as well as the active ingredients. And, thinking about things like hair colorants, for example, we developed effectively, let's call it a purple shampoo that isn't a shampoo or a conditioner. It's a type of a serum, because really, when you put in a blue color into your hair, the only thing you're interested in really is, does that blue color go into your hair? Because you can subsequently condition it and treat it to make it feel nice, whatever. But if you've got to build it around a kind of shampoo type formulation, you do have to make all sorts of compromises. But why do you need to do that? Make formulations really, really simple. And that's the way that we did it. So I think that doing the science side for us was really, really, really easy, because that's kind of what we do all the time, without those prejudices of the kind of, that's how we've done things for 20, 30 years. The key thing for us was trying to partner together with people who could help us with getting the messaging across. Because what we're trying to communicate with Dr. Kraft is very much that it's very science-based in terms of understanding what we've got and how it works, but with those natural and sustainable principles. That you can get all of that amazing stuff, sustainable, natural, whatever you want, but also the science, and that also it works. It's kind of almost like two polar opposites. If you look at lots of brands, that they either do one thing or the other. They're either really sort of scientific or they're really natural, and we're bringing both together. So communicating that message was really, really important. So
how easy is it to communicate that though? Because it's quite a complex message, I would say.
Yeah, it is. And again, that's an evolving process. We've just rebranded. We launched and then we've relaunched, in terms of getting the messaging right and trying to, come back to our packaging, communicating through utilizing our packaging to communicate that the science of nature as well, and trying to get that message across, so that hopefully when the consumer sees the packaging, they kind of get that message of sustainability, science, efficacy, all in one go. But that's a tough thing to do. And so working with the right people, the graphic designers, the branders, who were able to get that message, who also understand what you're trying to do in terms of sustainability and not compromising on that element of it, is really tough. And it's taken us a while to do it. It's taken us a few years to get to be where we are now. But I think it's the persistence and the time. And I think that we've been advantaged by other work that we've done in the business to give us the time and the flexibility to get to where we are. Whereas I can see where other brands, maybe don't have that time, and they're rushing things to market, that they might have to compromise. And I sympathize with that. But fortunately, I don't think we have to do that.
Yes, I agree with you on the time scale, because I think regarding sustainability is so complicated that we have to take time to think about what we want to do. And as you do, Joe, make trial, try things and see what works, what doesn't. And I want to talk a bit about packaging again, and I want to give like a bit of strategy on how to think about packaging. So I'm going to share a bit of slides and explain why I'm doing, what I'm doing right now. Because again, there's a comment on the chat here talking about the fact that the marketing are misleading consumers, and I don't agree with that necessarily. I think they're taking shortcuts, because in the mind of consumer, as you just said, Richard, earlier, natural means better, but actually not necessarily. Like if you are allergic to essential oils, then natural is going to be worse for you. You're going to have a lot of red spots on your face if you apply a nice product. So that's why I think in terms of packaging is the same way. So when it comes to packaging, you have to understand that there's a lot of things to consider, and it's the material, it's the transportation, the manufacturing of this material, and the filling of this packaging, for instance. And so that's why I've developed this program, and this is targeted to marketing of beauty brands, is to help them understand how to develop sustainability, to develop sustainable product into product development. So I'm taking them through packaging, formulation, labels and certification. Someone was talking about that in the chat as well. What are the labels and the certification out there? Is true that for organic or vegan or this kind of thing, there's no recognized legislation about that. It's mostly through labeling and through certification that we recognize whether a product is vegan or whatever. And so about the marketing claim as well, I want to talk about how to talk about sustainability, because we don't want to use clean beauty anymore nowadays, because it means something in the US, but it doesn't mean anything here in Europe, because our products are clean already, because the legislation is quite clean. It's just, it's a matter of, what you put behind it. And then if you say clean, does it mean that the rest is dirty, So that's why we need to be aware of that. So I'm building this program. And so the first module is going to be helping beauty brands understand packaging. And again, this is targeted at marketing, because if you are packaging technologist, you know what it means. You know what it means to develop product. And you, Joe, as an owner of a beauty brand, you had to learn all of this as you went along, I guess. And so what I want to do here, I want to bring content so that you don't make shortcuts. And when you talk about the fact glass is better than plastic, you think twice before claiming this. And so that's why I'm gonna go through introduction, consumer trends, packaging life cycle. I will talk about packaging material, innovations review, to see what are the innovations out there, where we are. Because today, as you said earlier, Joe, as well, we are limited in what we have available in terms of innovation. But tomorrow, in 5 years, 10 years time, there are gonna be amazing possibilities in terms of recycling, for instance, but also materials and capabilities of materials. And that's why I will talk about recycling as well. What is recycling today? How does it work? It's really like, I did a survey about that, and I contacted several people, and because it's a dirty job, people don't really want to talk about that. And so I got even someone hang up on me because they didn't want to talk about it. They're like, no, I don't want to do an interview. I say, just help me. And anyway, so this is how it works in the recycling side. And I want to talk about life lessons, and I have interviews of brands to talk about that. So I will put in the chat as of today, because I'm launching the platform mid-June, so it's going to be open up to marketing mid-June, and I'm going to give a 20% off to all people sign up today to the webinar. But yes, so when it comes to packaging, it's very, very complicated. And I think what I want to give here, I want to give a 360 view, because as a startup brand, I think it's easier when you start packaging, because you start from scratch and you can build your cost of good and your P&L and your business plan according to that. But when you already are a brand on site, and then you say, like your packaging must cost €1 maximum. What if you need to switch, and then all your suppliers say to you that your packaging is going to cost €2? So what it's double the price. How do you do that? And so in terms of packaging, I also want to say, is it possible to have something sexy and sustainable? I want to ask you, Richard, for instance, when you started your brand, were you able to find something that you find attractive, sexy, nice, but also that does the job and is sustainable and clean?
From a packaging perspective?
Yes. Maybe you don't have the answer, and you can say
it's a difficult one because packaging at its base level is not sexy. We're talking about very basic materials, and so me as a materials, I'm professor of sustainable materials at a world-leading university. I've got to look at it from a materials perspective in terms of what the reality is right now, and in choosing packaging materials, I have to think at this moment in time what is the best, most sustainable option for our brand, and that can subsequently develop. In terms of making it sexy, that's what I was referring to before. That's where you have to engage with the other people who have expertise that you don't, in terms of things like graphic design and communication. That's really, really important, that you recognize what skills you might need, and that might be a partner business that you have to partner with rather than coming from within. And I think that that's one of the advantages that SMEs have, is that you can collaborate much more flexibly and in a much more business-to-business way than with maybe some larger brands who are kind of, they're the big fish and you're small, and that's why finding the right partner there is really, really key. Because
that's why you need to do the course. You need to do my course, I think. I mean, because this is what I'm doing, and you're exactly there, and because I've been in the industry for 15 years and I know all the suppliers and all the beauty brands. And when you work with a supplier, they would supply you with one packaging, one material, and one sort of solutions, because none of them can be specialists in all of the product. Fair enough, they work on their specialties. So there would be bias in the information they give to you. They would say to you, use my plastic, my bio-based plastic is the best because of this, or use my aluminum because it's the best because of this and that. Actually, it's not that simple. And that's why I'm giving this 360 view, to give you all of what's at stake when it comes to material and packaging. And also because as a neutral person, I'm not a brand, not a supplier, I'm not a certification label or whatever. I can dig deep down and ask them questions. And because they know me for like 10 years, I actually got someone, they gave me the entire CSR report, and I signed a NDA with them. So, but this is the level of trust that they gave me. And this is the information you can't get yourself as a brand. I don't think you can get this level of information, Richard. Did you get that when you were researching? Or maybe Joe? Yeah.
We do it very much from an academic standpoint. That I think that advantages us in terms of being able to do the research in that perspective. And I think that one of the things that we've always been clear about is we've been doing sustainability for over 20 years before anybody even was talking about it. So when we're looking at packaging, for example, we're not just looking at a raw material, we're not just looking at a recycling option, we're looking at the full life cycle. And I think that that's the biggest mistake that people make in products, is that they don't think from a circular economy perspective. They just pick out little bits. Oh, this is made from this material, or this has this end of life option, and they don't think about the totality of it. And I think that that's the most important thing you can do. Difficult to achieve it, but that should be the aim, and that should be from the design of that product, packaging, whatever it is, from the outset.
Completely agree, because I think if you don't think at the design level, then whatever you do is going to create rubbish or is going to be recycled. But
there's no point making a biodegradable package if it does not get itself to a place where it can biodegrade.
I agree. Yes.
Because actually, it will cause more problems in recycling. It will cause more problems if it goes to landfill than something that you could have used, which was recycled.
Yeah, exactly. And Joe, what did you do for packaging? Because you went for aluminum, and what did you think about the sexy aspect of your product? Did you struggle with that, or you knew what you wanted from the start?
So maybe I'm just a little bit sad, because the three formats that we use is glass, aluminium, and stainless steel, and I actually get quite excited by the material science of each of those formats. So yeah, you can put me down as the sad packaging material nerd. The other thing that is interesting about what you guys have just been talking about in terms of circular economy and the design, not only is your modules taking people through each of those aspects, but you can also get clarification of that from places like the Cradle to Cradle Institute, for example, which is what we use to take us and guide us through. We've been using Cradle to Cradle principles from the start. And it's not been announced yet, but our products have just gone through this certification program, and there's a couple of reasons for the certification. One, it's an independent viewpoint, and it's not really a marketing, because if you asked 100 consumers, you'd be lucky if one knew about Cradle to Cradle. But what it did is, we know that it future-proofs our products, because we've designed from the beginning for products to fit into a circular economy base. And that's not just the natural cycle or the biological cycle from an ingredients perspective. Whether that's natural or biotech is for another day, but it's the technical cycle piece and this reuse. The other thing I wanted to mention, which somebody had said in the Q&A, is you've got B Corp certification as well, and these two certifications are quite different from something that's a single attribute like vegan, for instance, because they're multi-attribute. And when you start getting into multi-attribute certification, then you are talking about sustainability in people, planet, profit, all of those different areas. What is not just your impact on the planet, but what is your social impact? And social impact is people, but it's also profit, because you have to look after your business element of it. So I think it's really nice that at the moment there is a movement. I know that we are all early adopters of that, but it's a movement, it's not a trend. And that really excites me. So when coming back to the formats of packaging, I just think these are materials that have been around for a very long time. And we now have the factual data of how they stand up or stack up against lots of other packaging materials. And I think that just then gives options. The thing about a stainless steel bottle is, even just in its own, I think it's really sexy. You hold it, it has weight, it really engages with me. It gives me,
you've got texture as well. You got a feel, with the packaging.
Yeah, it's something that's weighty. And what we've also done is we've got a QR code on each piece of packaging. And, who knows if this piece of packaging was sitting on Leonardo DiCaprio's shower when they used the Beauty Kitchen body wash. Would I not love to have this bottle? You don't need to answer that, Richard. Yeah.
Okay, we'll try to get Leo to do that for you, to have one of your bottles in his shower. Try to get in touch with him. I wish. Anyway, so when it comes to sustainability, it's not really simple. So can you tell us more about your program, though, Joe? Because what you provided, because you invited, Unilever, and there's other brand in your system, but you decided to create the entire supply chain for that refillable system to make it accessible for brands, I guess. So you went through the trial and the testing and the cost and etc.
Yeah, so we did, and we work just. I know that you've mentioned in your slides the Loop program. So we're on the Loop platform, and when it comes to reuse and reusable packaging, I mean, you know this, Eva, it's quite a small, number of us across the globe at the moment that are actually trying to unlock this. So we all need to work together, and that's great because it's that collaborative approach in terms of unlocking the scale that this can be. We just basically couldn't find, at the time, Loop hadn't launched when we were looking into reusable packaging. So we basically had to, design that for ourselves. Fortunately, it's just, if I want to do something, I just need to do it myself. We're a small growing business, and you just find ways of doing it. As soon as you know there's an appetite, for change that's happening out there, you find a way of doing it. Anybody that's on here that started their own business, you find a way, whatever that is. So with Return, Refill, Repeat, it's not the sexiest name. Do you know what I mean? Will the name change? Probably. But at least we know what it is. You return it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, return, refill, repeat. That is basically what we do. But we have had to set up the infrastructure that sits behind that. So not just from the tracking of the packaging, but from the bottle washing facility to the cleaning protocols. We've had to get into lots of different areas that generally a beauty brand wouldn't have to get into. But I suppose that comes back to Richard's point when he's talking about ingredients. He said, they didn't want to necessarily use my ingredients, so I decided to start my own brand. It's kind of like that. What packaging company was going to really start up a reuse packaging model when it didn't make them money, and it's counterintuitive for them? So we had to do it on our own. And that's really where it started. But it means that we can help other people to do the same.
Yes, exactly. And so there's one single packaging, one single shape of packaging, but it's customizable by the brand, right?
No. So there's all different formats. So for skincare, we do glass smaller formats. So that could be a 15ml pipette bottle through to, a 60ml jar, for instance, which is kind of standard, and everything in between. When you get into personal care and body care, it's larger sizes, and that's 150ml, 300ml, 500ml to 1.2 litres for, ultimate refill at home. So we've done all of the different formats. The most popular one and the highest volume that we have at the moment is the 300ml and the 500ml, because that tends to be shampoos, conditioners, body washes. So it's those high volume, shorter term in terms of returnables.
Yeah, and regarding the skincare, just to finish on that, because skincare is more sensitive because you have to have a batch number and to get it airtight. When, like for shampoo or wash off product, it's a bit easier. So do you sorted that system as well?
Yeah, so we've done, for example, our 60ml jar, it has a plastic lid, and you have the EPEA liner inside that generally has a blue dot. We've worked with Richmond Packaging here in the UK to tool the lid. We've not IP'd this, by the way. You can get it from Richmond Packaging. That's not our style. It's not what we would do, but you no longer need that glue dot. And what we have is that certain elements of plastic can be reused if you can dismantle them and wash them at a certain cleaning protocol. So we've actually done that for each of the different, parts. When it comes to pumps, that's a lot of people's challenge, but what we do is we say it's a pump for life. So there's no reason for you to keep, you should keep that pump and reuse it again and again and again with your bottle.
Very interesting, very good. And actually, Richard, would you be interested in a refillable model, because your brand is not on that model yet? Is it something you could look into, or?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think it's what we look at as we evolve as a brand, and I think you've got to get to a critical mass to be able to do that. I think a refillable model is really interesting. Again, you've got to look at it from a life cycle perspective, and no comment on what Joe's talking about, but I know that there are other models of that, and you have to take into account things like the shipping and the cost of cleaning and those things in that life cycle to see, is it a more sustainable solution? And if it is, brilliant. I think that really represents something that we can get into. I mean, we majority of our products are glass because we think that the recycling options for glass at the moment are some of the best. We will, use other materials as they're appropriate to the product format, but we will always evolve as a brand to the most sustainable option that we see at the time and that we can afford within our cost of goods.
Interesting. And so I guess what is your ambition, both of you? What is your ambition what are your ambitions for your brands?
Well, of course it's to grow the brand and move into retail spaces, because I think again that sheer volume issue is not just about selling more units so you make more profit. Well, of course every business will say that they want to do that, who wouldn't? But it's that economy of scale that allows you to do some of the things to move to more sustainable solutions for certain things like packaging, things like that. I think that we'd like to see Dr. Kraft really as an example of best practice, in terms of showing people how to do it the right way and embracing those principles of sustainability, and that you don't have to compromise, that there are sustainable solutions that are not just replacements and trying to reach what the existing product does, but actually you can make a sustainable product which is better than what it's replacing, so that people are motivated to switch to your brand because it's better fundamentally, and then it's nice and clean and sustainable as a secondary advantage. I mean, one of the founders of green chemistry, Professor John Warner, said at a conference that I heard him speak at a couple of years ago, his ambition is the day when we no longer talk about green chemistry. We just talk about chemistry, because everything that we do with chemistry is green. And we should think about the same thing for sustainable materials. Maybe my position should really be defunct. I shouldn't be called Professor of Sustainable Materials. I'd like just to be Professor of Materials, where everything that we do is sustainable, because that's just what we do, but we're not there yet. And so that's the overall ambition.
Interesting. And what's your ambition, Joe?
So I think in the short term, we have an opportunity here in the UK and for the rest of the world with COP26 later this year. And we all know that we have a responsibility as human beings, whether we run a business or are part of a business, to be able to use our resources more wisely. And I think there's a focal point when you have conferences like COP26 that focuses the mind about climate change and what is your net zero, how do you do that? And a lot of the times we don't necessarily think about it as businesses at the moment, which we should be doing, or even as consumers. So I think what we want to do here at Beauty Kitchen is we want to help people on their journey to be able to make those sustainability swaps. But we also want to be industry focused as well and drive the change within the industry, because that means it will democratize sustainability and democratize reuse. So reuse for me is the big thing with packaging. Yeah, and I think the more beauty brands that have that option and format, the bigger the impact that we'll have in sustainability, and the bigger the impact we'll have on driving that net zero number.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. I think we are all on the same page here. There's no need to be like working on your side and developing something your own. It's just like, it's about, I guess, making sustainability available to the wider population and to everybody as we can. There are some questions in there, so I'm not being rude, but I was listening to you and reading to the question at the same time, and so I wanted to ask. There was someone talking about food waste and packaging, but I don't know whether, Richard, you can answer that. I can talk about that a little bit, but can you?
What's the question?
There was information about, have you done any research on food waste and packaging application?
Food waste to convert it into materials for packaging?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, of course there are possibilities. We make so much cellulose-based waste out of the food industry, and I'm not talking necessarily about the fruit. I mean, just think about how much stems, twigs, leaves, those sorts of things we produce in making food, things that aren't even that fundamental food component. And so if there are opportunities for converting those into usable materials, be it, boxes and cardboard packaging, and rather than necessarily the solid container that it's in direct contact with, then of course that's an opportunity. It's all again about a balance in terms of whether that represents a more sustainable solution than what it's currently made out of. But certainly, I think thinking about what's that fundamental material, what can it be used for, I think is the way to go. And that might not necessarily be from a physical conversion perspective. You have to think about the potential of these byproducts as chemical building blocks, digesting them, breaking them down into building blocks to make other things as well.
Yeah.
Eva, just to add to that practically, if anybody wants to look at Canopy, which is an NGO, they have the campaign which is called Pack for Good, and they have a tool where you can go on and look for packaging that doesn't come from the paper or the plastic industry. So it's using waste materials from around the globe, and they have people in the UK that are doing it, people in Europe, across everywhere, but they're using waste material to currently make packaging, and that can be everything from paper through to basic sort of card. We're currently working in the background with Enfopack is the company that we're working with, just to explore how we can utilise that so that we can move away, because paper isn't necessarily the strict alternative from plastic either.
Exactly. What's the name of the company, the website again? Sorry.
It's so where the tool is, so that you can find suppliers of these different types of packaging. It's on Canopy, their website. I could put the link in the chat if you want me to find it. And the campaign at the moment is called Pack, the number 4, Good.
Pack for Good. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I heard about that. Okay. Very interesting. And so I'm trying to see other questions about, there are some information about certification and regulation, and someone was asking whether they were all different. I'm just saying that yes, whether you are B Corp or Leaping Bunny or something else, they are all very different. And that's why I will cover them as well in the module. I'm not trying to just sell my thing yet, but this is why I build a program, because sustainability is so confusing. Nobody knows, and we need to have answers and to know what to do. And
sorry, Eva, can I just add to that as well? Remember, guys, you have to think about who your customer base is as well.
Yep.
So your consumer or customer, whether it's retail or wholesale, what is it that you are trying to sell them?
Yes.
So some people will be very, very interested in Leaping Bunny. Others won't be interested in B Corp. So, you have to choose wisely. And that's why the module on there should then give you the option about what's right for your business.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so it's, I agree. You need to, that's why you said very early on, you need to, what's your strategy, where you want to go, because then if you know that, then this is when you can make decisions. Okay, I think we can, go on and on and on about that for a long time, but I think sustainability is not finished, it's not an answer, but, we have some ideas here, what we can do. We hope that this webinar helped you. I don't know, any word to finish that? Richard or Joe?
I think that, as I say, I think that the important thing in sustainability is focusing on circularity and thinking about the full aspects of your production, not just what it looks and feels like and presents to the consumers. Because there's, you can do that. You can sell something and tell somebody it's sustainable, and they'll probably buy it. But whether it's true sustainability is a different issue. And I think sometimes, we forget that some of the biggest impacts that we can have in sustainability are things that are not sexy, things like energy saving, water saving, being able to reduce packaging size because we don't make a product which is basically just water. That's some of the things that we're looking at, massive reductions in water, smaller volume sizes, that then potentially, allows you to do things in a more sustainable way. And I say, reducing the temperatures of production because the amount of energy you save is, not shipping ingredients, materials all around the world. What can you source more locally? these are huge things that can have a massive impact on your sustainability. That I don't think everybody's thinking about.
Completely agree. And just to clarify on that note, I think most of suppliers before they would work from Europe or from the States or from Asia, whatever. And now every supplier has developed and make sure that all their technology are available in each of their plants, whether in Brazil, whether in North America, whether in Europe, etc. So now you can find the same level of technology in each of the suppliers' plant locally, so you can source your packaging locally. And Joe, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think with sustainability, it's about progress. It's never about perfection. And coming back to Richard's point of him not being professor of sustainable materials at some point in the future, I think it's around you're making progress with actually engaging with trying to be more sustainable. We know it's a busy, looks very complicated. Try and chunk it down, into manageable chunks and do a piece at a time, and then take your customers along that journey with you. I think Cradle to Cradle in particular, if I highlight them as an institute, what they want you to do is design products that are safe and circular. And that's really what it comes down to if you're looking to be, ultimately more sustainable within personal care and beauty.
Yeah, interesting.
And be able to articulate why you make your decisions and stand by them. Because people will come and say, oh, you're doing all this, but what about this bit of your business? Have good answers and prepared to be brave and say, we're doing this because we think this is right for now and we're evolving or whatever it is, but stand by your principles and commit to them.
Yeah, I agree. But I would just add to all of that it's really hard to know where to start, even though you need to start somewhere. People don't know where to start, and so that's why we're trying all of us, here to equip people to do that, to know where to start. And I think transparency and being honest to where you are at is another thing as well. Like, okay, we would like ideally to have this thing, but it's not available today. So we are developing that, and maybe in 5 years' time it will be. So today, the trade-off that we made is like we decided to go for that product. Exactly, something like that. And I think if we are more transparent about our evolution, because we are coming from a world where everything is perfect and everything is to be lush and sexy and etc. But actually life is not like that in reality. So that's why we need to show that a bit more. And I just wanted to invite Kirsty to say maybe a thank you to everybody. And yeah, thank you to all the attendees. And Kirsty is the communications director for the Cosmetic Cluster UK, which is the host today. So yes, come in, Kirsty.
Well, it's just fabulous to be listening to today. I mean, each one of you as speakers has been just so informative, and the chat has been so active. We've learned so much from one another, and that's exactly what Cosmetic Cluster UK is all about. It's collaboration, networking, and bringing people together. I know that there have been lots of links in the chat. I'll make sure we'll download the chat as well as the video and share that content through Ava's YouTube channel as well as on the Cosmetic Clusters UK website. But thank you very much from our side and to all the speakers.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for the attendees. Thank you for you, Richard and Joe, for taking the time today and in the preparation as well. And all the best to the sustainable future. And we are working for the planet. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.